solve the triangle. Round lengths to the nearest tenth and angle measures to the nearest degree. So they're giving us A, B, and C. So let's draw this triangle. First off, for starters here. All right, so we have our triangle. And let's put down the important information. A here, capital A, capital B, capital C are the three angles. And then remember, across from the A is the capital A is the little a, across from the capital B is the little b, across from the capital C's side little c. So the same letter angles are across from the same letter sides. A across from A, B across from B, C across from C. That's how we always set up the triangle. Okay, what are they telling us? They're saying little a is 8, side length 8. Little b is 5, and little c is 4. So how are we going to find the angles? So first off, we cannot use any kind of SOHCAHTOA stuff. Why can't we use SOHCAHTOA? Because it's not a right triangle, right? You can always only use SOHCAHTOA for right triangles. We don't have a right triangle here. We also, so what do we do when we can't use SOHCAHTOA? Well, we try the law of sines or cosines. Well, we also cannot use the law of sines here. It's going to have to be law of cosines. Why? Why can't we use law of sines? Because we do not have two sides, and well, we don't have any side angle combo, do we? We do not have any side with the angle across from it. You have to have a side with an angle across from it to use the law of sines. So we can't use the law of sines either. So to the law of cosines, our only option, we go. So how's the law of cosines work? So let's write it out first. So the law of cosines. There's basically three versions of it. It says a squared is b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine, let me back that up, of a, or b squared is a squared plus c squared minus 2ac cosine capital B, or c squared is a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine of c. See how the laws, so you can put these right in your notes for the exam. How do you know now which version of the law of cosines should we use? That's really important that you catch this and have this in your notes. You start with the biggest side on the left. That's really important. When you're doing the law of cosines in this situation, you start with the biggest side on the left. Now, I'll give you the reason for that in a minute, but trust me, it really matters. It'll mess you up if you don't. So which side is the biggest? Well, the 8. So I'm going to use this version of the law of cosines. So let's take it on down. Right over here. So the law of cosines, that version, a squared is b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine capital A. All right, let's plug this stuff in. So we've got 8 squared is b squared, which is 5 squared, plus c squared, which is 4 squared, minus 2 times 5 times 4 cosine capital A. We don't know capital A. It's right here. We're trying to find it. All right, what does that give us? 64 is 25 plus 16 minus 2 times 5 is 10 times 4 is 40 cosine capital A. So 25 and 16, what's that? 41. So that good so far? Now, now can I subtract these? 41 minus 40, get 40? You get 1? No, you can't do that, right? Because those are unlike terms. Instead, you need to subtract the 41 from both sides. And then what do we get? We get 23 is minus 40 cos A, right? Okay, and now we're gonna solve for this. All right. So now divide both sides by the negative 40. So we cancel that out, and we get cosine of A. So 23 divided by negative 40, I'm getting negative 0.575. Okay. Now I need to find A. How am I going to find capital A? Can I just divide both sides by cosine to get rid of that so A is alone? No, I hope you know it's not valid. You can't do that and then cancel these out. Why? Because it never meant multiply. It never was cosine times A. So I can't get rid of it by dividing. It never was multiplication. So don't do that. It's a common mistake I see a lot. So don't do that. So instead, well, how do you got to get rid of that cosine? Yes, you do. You got to get rid of that cosine. What's going to get rid of that cosine? You know, cosine inverse, huh? Cosine inverse, and you got to, whatever you do to one side, you have no choice but to do the same thing to the other. These cancel. Capital A is alone. Other side. Hit the buttons on your calculator. Cosine inverse of negative 0.575. I'm getting 125.1 degrees. So that's capital A. We've got it. Let's go back up. Yeah, see, we've already got two possible answers, 125 degrees rounded to the nearest whole number. So now we've got to, so let's put this in, this is 125.1 degree. Now we've got to find B and C because we don't know which answer it is. So we got to find B and C. Now notice we have a side and angle across from it. So now we can use law of sines. So let's bring this up here. So now we have this. So we'll come on up. And we're going to say, now we have side and angle across. So we can use law of sines to finish this problem. So we do law of cosines at first because we didn't have any, we just had three sides. We didn't have any angles across from them. Do law of cosines, you use the biggest side, which gives us the biggest angle across from it. With law of cosines, solve for that. Then once you've got an angle, now you have a side angle combo. So now to finish the problem, use law of sines because that's easier. I mean, you could use law of cosines again, but law of sines is easier. So I'm going to use the A with the A. So I'm going to say sine of A over little a, and then I'm just go for B or C, it doesn't matter. I'll just do B. Sine B over B. So sine of A, so sine of 125.1 degree over little a, what was little a? 8 equals sine of B, I don't know B, over little b, 5. There we go. Okay, so let's solve that. Cross multiply, diagonal, diagonal. 5 sine 125.1 degrees equals 8 sine B. All right, to finish solving there for B, divide by the 8 on both sides. And so we get sine B, divide the other side. I'm getting 0.5113. Now, how do you, last thing is you got to get rid of that sine, so you know the deal. Sine inverse Sine inverse on both sides cancels out over there. So we get b equals sine inverse of the answer, 30.75 degrees. That'll round to 31. I think they want us to round to the nearest whole degree. 31 degrees. So b is, 31 degrees. So there it is. B is 31 degrees. How do we find the third side, C? Well, that's easy. I'm just going to subtract from 180, right? I'm not going to do any fancy law of sines or cosines. Just going to take 180 minus 125 minus 31 on my calculator. And I'm getting 24 degrees. Sure enough, answer C. There we go. We found all three angles. Now, why was it important? I want to rehash real quick. Why was it important right here that when we do law of cosines, we start with the biggest side? Why? Well, it's because what happened down here with the law of sines. Remember, whenever we use law of sines and we do, specifically it's the sine inverse, I should say. It's the sine inverse. Normally, when you do sine inverse, sine inverse, you must check for your second answer. Right? Normally when you do sine inverse, you must check for a second possible answer. Well, it's not needed that second answer is always more than 90, so it is the biggest angle in the triangle. That second answer, if possible, we started with the biggest angle, right? That's what I told you to do. Start with the biggest angle right up here, right? Start with the biggest side, which will have the biggest angle. See how the biggest side has the biggest angle across from it? That's how it always works. And the medium side has the medium angle, right? 5 is the medium side, 31 is the medium angle. Smallest angle, smallest side, that's how it always works in a triangle, right? An angle's opening affects the side across from it. So, of course, the biggest angle across from it's the biggest side, medium, medium, small, small. So when you start with the biggest side, you're getting the biggest angle. So what's my point in all that? We started with the biggest angle, so we cannot have another biggest angle. We've already got the biggest angle. So what? So we do not need to worry about sine inverse second answer, because it must be impossible. Why? Why is that? Because as I told you up here, whenever that second answer is always more than 90, so it's the biggest angle in the triangle. And we've already got the biggest angle in the triangle because we started with it. So that way, you don't even have to worry about a second angle answer. It's impossible. That's why if you don't do it this way, you're going to run into trouble. That's why I'm telling you, always start with the biggest side. When you do law of cosines, and you got all three sides, start with the biggest side. Always start with the biggest side. You'll get the biggest angle, and then when you come down here and do sine inverse, you won't have to worry about anything. Just take the answer you get. That's the only valid answer. You don't even need to check for a second answer like we normally do with sine inverse, because that second answer is going to be impossible. Why? Because it's always the biggest angle, and we've already got the biggest angle. There can't be another one. That's why we do that. So there we go.